morning and welcome to Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where we have 3 astronauts and 1 cosmonaut about to suit up for their journey to the International Space Station in just about 4 hours. You are seeing aerial views of what their ride will be today. A brand new Falcon 9 rocket atop. We have the Dragon Endeavour. We are trying to launch these 4 folks again after the launch team chose to stand down from yesterday's attempt due to weather. We had elevated winds along the ascent corridor, but today things are looking much more promising. Today's T0 is 10:53 and 38 seconds Eastern Time, and the weather, while still a watch item, better than yesterday. 75% go here at the launch site, and the conditions have also improved along the ascent corridor. The teams will be keeping a close eye on that corridor through the T-1 hour weather brief. Crew-8 is a continuation of regular crewed flights from U.S. soil to the International Space Station as part of NASA's Commercial Crew program. The crew's ride to space, again, what you're seeing there on your screen. Dragon Endeavour will fly for a 5th time with this launch, and over the next 4.5 hours, we will show you all the action live and in 4K. Inside the suit-up room, where we see our 3 astronauts and 1 cosmonaut standing, getting ready to get seated in the same configuration of seats that they'll sit in Dragon, right?
Exactly, yeah. So you'll see Matt and Mike are on the top half of the screen, and then Jeanette and Alexander on the bottom half. We're getting to see a little bit more than we did yesterday. So yeah. You saw Alexander kind of fist punching, so he's working his fingers into the gloves. And then you can see Matt's, there's 2 zippers there, an orange and a white zipper. Mm-hmm. So the orange zipper is the pressure garment, and that's why he's got just 2 people, just verified that visually that it's closed. He'll tuck that in with the Velcro, and then the white zipper is the outer garment zipper. But you saw Matt and then both of the SpaceX techs all visually verified that orange zipper. When you pull it closed, there's a white tooth, and that's how you know it's completely sealed, and so that's what they're visually looking at. And then Maddie, who's the SpaceX tech there with the iPad, is kind of running the show here in the suit-up room.
Now, as we see Alexander and Jeanette taking a seat, question, how long does it take to put on the suit?
So we actually train for one of the emergency scenarios we train for is what's called a mask to suit transition. So the crews are able to do that pretty quickly on the order of single-digit number of minutes, because in the capsule there's times when a lot of the time you'll have the suit off, but you will have to potentially put it on for some if there's.
This is LD on countdown 1 with a T-4 hour situational awareness briefing. We are currently counting down to a T0 of 03:53:38 UTC, 22:53:38 local, with an instantaneous window. The crew has started suit donning and lead checks in preparation to begin ingress activities, and the advanced team is currently on the way to the pad. Vehicle gases are at me-up, FTS checkouts are complete, and Dragon prop tanks are pressed. Weather overall looks much better than yesterday, with launch weather at a 25% probability of violation for flight through precip and anvil clouds. Current trends over the last hour appear to be more favorable. Ascent risk winds are much better than yesterday, but we'll continue to monitor precipitation in the staging area up until L-1 hour. In the event of scrub, the next available launch attempt will be tomorrow, March 4th. Procedure 52.911 is open in the event of a crew contingency from ingress through launch. As a reminder, the launch escape system will be armed prior to propellant load today. Hangar access will go into lockdown at T-minus 45 minutes and will last until the spacecraft separation or after the launch escape system is disarmed. All personnel are requested to stay in their locations until lockdown is complete. And CE, do you have a report on Falcon 9 health?
Falcon 9 is healthy and tracking no issues at this time, ready to proceed.
And Eddie.
Dragon team is looking good over here. Dragon is healthy and ready to proceed.
All right, copy all, and this will conclude the T-4 hour brief, unless there's any further questions.
All right, that was just the T-4 hour situational awareness brief, confirming again that we are go for launch at 10:53 and 38 seconds Eastern Time. Weather, again, much better. You heard them just reporting that out. 75% go, much more favorable than yesterday, as well as the ascent corridor weather, much better. But they will be watching precipitation and other conditions there until the T-1 hour mark. Falcon 9 is healthy, Dragon is healthy, so right now I think we're in a good spot. Roger,
Yeah,
what do you think?
Sounds good. As you heard there, the precip in the staging area is the thing they're watching, the ascent corridor, which is better than yesterday, which also had some wind and wave issues. So today it's just more of watching that rain, and as that moves out, and as the night goes on, hopefully that continues to improve. So that's the trend they'll continue to watch.
And so we're taking a look at Dominick laughing inside his suit right now. He's getting his suit pressure checked, right?
He is, yeah. So you asked about how long it takes to get in the suit. It's a few minutes. That's if in an off-nominal case. So when they're doing it for this, they take a little bit longer just to make sure everything's in the best config it can and everything is comfortable. Yeah, it's meant to self-don, so you don't need two people to do it like you do with the EMUs, which are the extravehicular mobility units we use for spacewalks. So these are self-donning. And we talked a little bit yesterday about, you can see how his knees are starting to puff up, so the suit's starting to inflate. So once they go visors down, that's when the gas starts flowing and it starts to pressurize. And it's actually unlike the spacewalk suits that we use that have their own internal closed loop CO2 removal, the SpaceX suits, they actually are leaking in the sense that the gas that's flowing is actually coming out. And so that's actually what's scrubbing out the CO2 as the crew member's exhaling. So air comes out, but air doesn't go back in, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But there's a regulator that maintains that basically at pressure, and you'll see his arms and legs inflate.
And why don't we take some time now to introduce you to Matt Dominick, our commander. He was born and raised in Wheat Ridge, Colorado. Married to Faith Dominick, and they have 2 daughters. Matt earned a Master of Science degree in Systems Engineering from the Naval Postgraduate School and was designated a naval aviator in 2007. He made 2 deployments to the North Arabian Sea, flying close air support missions in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. He has more than 1,600 hours of flight time in 28 different aircraft, 400 carrier-arrested landings, and 61 combat missions. This is going to be his first spaceflight.
Yeah, and like we talked about yesterday, Megan, the other important thing about Matt is he's a turtle. So as a fellow turtle with the class of 2017, great to see another one going to space. He'll join Jaws and Laurel, who are up there now. So there'll be 3 of them on board. But great to see Matt flying. He is always one of the most hilarious people in any room you're in, but also one of the most technically competent and just knows how to get the job done. So I'm excited to see him commanding this mission and heading up to join the rest of the crew up on the ISS.
And as his pressure check was completed, we have pilot Michael Barratt sitting next to him. He was selected by NASA in 2000. He's the only one of Crew-8 who's been to space before. He was part of Expedition 1920 in 2009 and STS-133 in 2011. In total, he's spent 212 days in space. He is board certified in internal and aerospace medicine. He has actually been awarded numerous times for his contributions to space medicine research. Michael lives in League City, Texas with his wife Michelle, and they have 5 children. Personal and recreational interests, we talked about this yesterday, include sailing, boat restoration, writing, and cooking food in harsh or remote places. He said austere specifically.
Yeah, Mike and Michelle are great, and you mentioned he's the one on the crew with previous spaceflight experience and couldn't have a better mentor for the rest of the crew. And I know that because he was my mentor during ASCAN training, so he's just a great human. I'd be curious to see if the suit techs would unzip one of his zippers for us, but I'm guessing he's got snacks hidden in one of those pockets because, as you mentioned, he is infamous or famous as it may be for both cooking in austere conditions, but for also being consistently supplied with snacks. Yeah, you mentioned if you Google him, he is the person that writes the book on flight medicine, space flight medicine. So if you are a space flight medicine student, you surely know his work because that's the book you're studying from.
So he's very prepared, will be very valuable up there for snacks and also if anyone gets sick. All right, and now this is Mission Specialist Jeanette Epps we're taking a look at. This will also be her first space flight. The Syracuse, New York native was a NASA fellow during graduate school and then worked for Ford Motor Company, where she received a U.S. patent for her research into auto collisions and countermeasure systems. After leaving Ford, she joined the Central Intelligence Agency for 7 years, and she worked as a technical intelligence officer before becoming an astronaut in 2006. She has a Master of Science and a Doctorate of Philosophy in Aerospace Engineering. And Raja, she's also a twin.
She is indeed, yeah. So I'm pretty sure it's her, though, in the suit-up room. I don't think they would have been able to get it this far. But yeah, Jeanette's actually, I can't talk about much of what she did before she showed up at NASA, but based on where she worked. But since she's been at NASA, she's actually got some pretty unique experiences in the sense that she's obviously flying on a Dragon tonight, but she actually worked a lot with a Starliner. So she's one of the few people in the office who's seen both of our new vehicles that are U.S. built heading to the space station. So both the Boeing and the Dragon, which is a pretty cool experience. I think one thing I can talk about her background, she's an amazing innovator. So we had a T-38 flight, and I'll keep it short, but basically we had to figure out a way to get something. There was really windy, so something got blown down the intake while we were in outbase, and she helped with the tech out of the outbase figure out a way to get it out from inside the engine. So we can talk more about it later, but we'll let them keep watching the suit up here.
Wow. Yeah, really accomplished, our whole team, actually. And let's introduce you to our last Crew-8 member here. So this is Alexandra Grebenkin, mission specialist, also a first-time flyer, graduated from the Irkutsk Military Aerospace Engineering Institute in 2002, majoring in the engineering, maintenance, and repair of aircraft radio navigation systems. He then attended the Moscow Technical University of Communications and Informatics, graduating with a degree in radio communications, broadcasting, and television. He was accepted into the Cosmonaut Corps in 2018 and will serve as flight engineer while on board the space station. We're getting a close-up view of him right there. Visors up, so I believe his pressure check was also completed.
Yep, yeah, so Alexander is in one of the newer groups of the cosmonaut classes, and just a testament to the continuing partnership. Laurel's up on the space station now. She got up there via Soyuz. Alexander will be heading up via Dragon, so continuing to learn from him and work with one another.
And so right now, we talked about this a little bit before, but for those who might be joining us for this broadcast and they weren't with us yesterday, so right now, it seems like they have some downtime here and they're kind of hanging out. And why is that, Raja?
So they build in time, so the whole purpose of this, what we're seeing right now in the suit-up room, is to leak check the suits. They'll do it again when they get inside the Dragon, but if there's a problem then it can have the potential to have delays to the launch, whereas here they have all the equipment. You can see there's a lot of people, it's easy to move around, so anything that doesn't pass on the suit leak checks, they have the ability to fix it. And so because of that, they build in the assumption of a failed leak check when they build the timeline for this. Maddie there, who's the one with the iPad, has almost like a quarterback has the cuff checklist on her left hand there, so she's got the timeline and then is running everything. But yeah, they build in extra time so that if they did have to fix a part, swap a component, they would have time to do that now. And so in the case where it looks like everyone's suit leak check passed on the first attempt, then you've got a little bit of time left to just relax a little bit, get on cooling. So right now they're in umbilicals. They're not on the mobile cooling units yet. I can't tell actually.
I don't see it, yeah.
But so right now this is a good chance to kind of get their met rates down, get their core body temperature down, because once they get outside in the hot, humid Florida air in a suit, it can get warm fast. So
sure.
This lets them cool off. It's also a chance for them to catch up with these SpaceX folks you're seeing here, 1134, and then I can't see his number, but Rick on the far end. There's lots of different families the astronauts work with. There's obviously their families, their loved ones. There's a SpaceX family. There's a mission control family. There's an ISS family, and so every one of those families is special. They've been working with these people for about 18 to 24 months, and specifically, Rick, Maddie, and Haley are ones they see a lot. And then
this is a shot actually of the astronaut support person, right? So wearing number 21, the one is covered there, but number 21, that is Denise Burnham. And she is a NASA astronaut candidate, graduating actually in 2 days. And what's her role here?
Yeah, so Denise is what we call the ASP, which is the astronaut support person. In the shuttle era, they used to call it the Cape Crusaders, but essentially it's the person that is the eyes and ears of the crew as they're setting up in the final stages for the launch. So she's been in quarantine with them. And in the shuttle era, it would involve being the only other person besides the crew that would go inside and configure switches. What Denise will do, as what has been doing this whole time in quarantine, as the schedule shift and as there's different meetings and launch, like the weather briefs, all those kind of things, if the crew is unable to make those things as they're schedule shifting, she is covering all that. The other, you'll see the very public thing she'll do later on is call from the phone on the pad. But the thing you won't see when they cut the feed here is all the little things. So like getting glasses ready, if like someone has a timer, if they like where exactly on their leg they want the iPad positioned. So all those things seem very little, but after so many sims, you kind of have a scan, or we call it a cockpit cross-check, and it's very kind of particular of where you want all those different things, where you want maybe, like I said, like a timer located, as you can see, where you want your watch. And so she's kind of like the expert and knows for each person exactly how they want it configured, to include, you know, Jeanette maybe wants her volume set at whatever on this loop, and having all that preset, so when they get into the Dragon, things are ready to go. You can see some faces behind the window there, so it looks like they're on time.
Here they come, Crew-8, taking their first steps outside before their journey to the International Space Station. We hear some cheers, yep. Them waving. From left to right, let me introduce you. We have Mission Specialist Alexandra Grebenkin. Then we have Pilot Michael Barratt, Commander Matt Dominick, and Mission Specialist Jeanette Epps. They're walking now to greet family and friends who came specifically for them. They have assigned spots with assigned stanchions of people. Exactly,
yeah. So what you'll see is they won't go any further down towards where the administrator is standing, so that's as close as they'll get to them since they have been in quarantine, and then their families, the immediate families, are staying behind the stanchions there. And once they get in the vehicles, the families that have been quarantined will come up to the windows.
Nice big wave for the camera from Alexander there. Now we have a shot of Michael. Do you recognize, are those his kids there? Or?
Well, the ones he's right in front of right now are the administrator.
Yep.
I can see the administrator, Nelson. I think he's went to talk to them, and he's going back by his kids.
Because I know he has adult children.
He does, yep. Yeah, Mike's kids are adults. I think I can see Steve and his wife, and I think his adult kids are behind Steve in the second stanchion there.
We're getting some audio from the feed. Let's see if we can listen in to what folks might be saying.
All right, so Haley's giving him the wrap it up, number 34. Like I said, like one of the key SpaceX members that the crew is very familiar with, and she's kind of helping run this whole timeline. So they're going to start working towards the Teslas, and you'll see the families then come up to the windows, and you'll talk to them there as well.
Yeah, we are expecting them to leave the ONC here at around T-minus 3 hours and 15 minutes. Another great cheer from the crowd as we see Jeanette Epps taking her seat in her Tesla. She'll be joined by Alexander Grebenkin. And then in front of them, we have Matt and Mike, who just got seated as well.
And then the people in the Teslas with them are the SpaceX ninjas, and usually there'll be a suit tech, and then either a flight doc or two suit techs. Just kind of the mix kind of depends. But so you're kind of always ready to respond if anything is having problems with the suits.
And so they're also going to attach them to their umbilicals in the cooling units again. That's why we also have the second opportunity for families to go up?
Correct, yeah. So that's why they limit them on time, just so they don't get too hot, as it is not as bad tonight, but some nights can be pretty hot and humid. But once they're in the vehicles, those cooling units are there, so they can plug back in and start getting cooling flow again. And like we mentioned before, it's much more comfortable for the crew to be sitting than it is to be standing. It offloads the weight of the suit off their shoulders and head.
And so the folks who are at the cars right now, they've been in quarantine.
Exactly. Yep. Those are there's other extended family, but those can't actually come up to the window because they haven't been in hard quarantine the whole time.
Looks like Matt's wife is.
Yep.
And the two daughters. Wadi's taking a picture of them with Matt in the car there.
So it looks like Mike's adult children were able to go to the front of the car, just not up to the window. You can see his wife's over there by the window, which is pretty standard. Again, only the folks that are actually in quarantine getting that close enough to actually talk to the crew with the windows down.
You know, since we did see that Matt has younger children, I know you had younger children when you flew. How did you prepare them for this moment, or how was that moment with them?
It's interesting. I think each family kind of deals with their own way. So we talked a lot about it before and during.
And now we can see the crew is departing from the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building, beginning their 20-minute drive with a full security escort across NASA's Kennedy Space Center to Launch Pad 39A. In the words of their license plates, yay space. Now, we again want to invite those who are watching to participate by asking Raja a question here as we see the convoy hang a right. Again, they're going to be driving through Kennedy Space Center. Just hop on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or X. Send your question, #AskNASA, and we will answer as many as we can. And as they begin their drive out, it's usually less than 20 minutes. But as we begin the drive, let's again hear from Commander Matt Dominick. Again, first space flight, but he has more than 1,600 flight hours and 61 combat missions as a naval aviator. There's Matt and Mike walking over to get a good look at their ride to space.
And like we mentioned, it's hard to see because the helmet's heavy and not really melt to tilt backwards, but so you got to kind of lean back.
Yeah.
And you can see he's bracing his chin, trying to tilt the helmet up.
Taking a nice long look.
And as you mentioned, the capsule is being used for the 5th time, but a brand new booster. And SpaceX has
recline back.
Pioneered the reuse of both the booster and the capsule, so pretty amazing with the...
Yep, 5th time Dragon, 1st time Falcon 9 today. And now here they are. They're getting into an elevator that will take them up the launch tower. We won't be joining them inside the elevator, but we do have a picture of the buttons inside there. If we can pull that up as they walk inside, as you can see, the bottom floor is Earth. And where they'll be going to is space.
Makes it very easy to know which button you have to push.
Yeah, no confusion there, huh? Was it like that for you, or is that a new addition?
I think the space is a new addition. I think for ours, it was still the other numbers correspond to the feet off the ground, is what those numbers are. And so you can imagine with Artemis, it's going to be an even bigger number. They actually come up here. There's actually kind of 2 floors. They come out here and then wrap around and go up another very short set of stairs that goes up to the actual level where the crew access arm is at. Mm-hmm. And you saw that since they're going into the clean room, you saw the Ninjas have they have the hoods on for their hair as well, like I mentioned. So 21, like we mentioned before, that's Denise, who's the ASP. It's a little harder to tell that now that everyone's got the hoods on.
That's why the numbers are probably really
exactly,
important.
Yep.
All right, so we have Matt and Mike walking up, like you said, a set of stairs. That'll bring them to the final level where they'll connect.
Correct.
To the
Yep. And those yellow chevrons you see on the ground, if they have to egress, they don't actually have to go back down those stairs. There's slide wires that go from the top of the tower down to the ground, and so those chevrons are meant that if there's bad visual conditions, you can look down and know which way to go.
So they'll be walking against it to get into the crew access
Correct.
arm.
Yep.
But if there were an emergency, they'd be going with the chevrons.
Right. You can see over their right shoulder is the access arm, and then you can see Alexander and Jeanette down at the bottom of the elevator getting their time and their chance to take a look at the rocket.
The rocket recline, and then we saw some waves from Alexander.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool view with all the lights on it at night.
I wonder how they're feeling in this moment to see their ride. I mean, and to also be at the base of this rocket. Like, we've been seeing beautiful views of it, but to really be at the bottom of it looking up, that's when it becomes really...
It's pretty exciting, and I think that's why I think 100% of the people you see, even though it's uncomfortable on your head and shoulders, still tilt all the way back, because it is a pretty impressive sight to look straight up and just see the rocket and actually get a sense of scale. Because it's really hard for us when we see it from a distance, with nothing to really compare it to, you kind of lose that sense of how big it actually is.
To the left side of your screen, that's a great shot from, again, our flight ops team here. That's a helicopter that's orbiting the pad right now, giving you that beautiful shot of Mike and Matt. They're making phone calls.
Yep, so you can see in the left-hand picture is the view of where they're at on the pad arm, and the right side was the crew access arm, and on the right-hand view, you're seeing number 21, Denise, there operating the pad phone there for them to call to their family. before they actually go into the crew access arm.
Yeah, the mission specialists are about to catch up right now with, there you go, with Matt and Mike there. So this phone call, you mentioned that Denise helps them, and it's because of the gloves they're wearing, right, to dial?
Yeah, exactly. It's and also, again, we're just super conservative about anything getting contaminated or touching anything. So, but yeah, it's mostly just because in the gloves, it's hard to actually, probably a high likelihood of misdialing, trying to dial a phone.
And this is an opportunity maybe to call some of the folks that you did just see at Crew Walkout to say, hey, I made it,
right,
but also others,
yeah,
right?
it could be that. It could be people that maybe couldn't travel here for whatever reason, maybe aren't well enough to travel, but are still pretty important people in their life. So that's the other, I think, common thing that people might do. You see they're getting rid of the cooling units there. So they left them. You can see like the bottom, the middle is one of those blue cooling units, because as now they transitioned into the crew access arm.
And there we have Commander Matt Dominick, pilot Michael Barratt, walking down the crew access arm towards their Dragon Endeavour. Walked into the camera. Here they are now into that white room, like we were saying. So it looks like they are removing their gloves now.
Yep, it looks like they might be signing the around the meatball here.
So this is another tradition.
Yep.
We have the NASA meatball here, and starting with Demo 2 with Bob Hurley and
Bob Benkin and
Bob
Doug
Benkin.
Hurley.
Yeah, oops, I was like, whoop, wait. You say their names often, all the time together, and then, but so they sign their names around this meatball.
Yep, and then it started, as many traditions start. Once one crew has done it, then you keep doing it.
Running out of space there, too.
We're going to need another meatball.
And right next to the meatball was actually the SpaceX logo. And that is signed by the crews of Axiom 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
Axiom Space is the first commercial company to transport private crews to and from the International Space Station. And they launched all 3 missions with SpaceX. And the logo is also signed by the Inspiration 4 crew, so the first all-civilian crew to orbit the Earth. So again, this is like a physical representation of all that we've been doing in the last few years,
and
2020.
And like a perfect representation of the partnership, too. I mean, you can see the public and the private right next to each other, and it just indicates that, enabling private space by utilizing government infrastructure. I mean, it's the same pad, the same facilities, the same Kennedy Space Center, and doing both things and working in tandem with one another to make it all happen.
So what's happening now? FOD checks, is that what's happening? Foreign object debris checks?
I think so. It looks like they're putting their hands back in the gloves, so they took their hands out to sign. It's crew preference on whether you want to ingress with your hands in your gloves or not, so it looks like they both are electing to put them back in their gloves now. Mm-hmm. So that's what they're doing now, is redoing that, and then like we talked about before, once Mike gets his back in there, they'll re-verify visually that it's the zipper's closed. Maddie there, who's got the white cuff checklist on, number 11, is also watching the time all the time, and keeping them on timeline.
And you were talking about FOD again, foreign object debris. I mean, it is as small as something like a hair, which actually got into the seal for Crew 5's launch, and they had to reopen the seal, remove that hair before they could close the seal for launch, or close the hatch for launch.
Yeah, and that's why the last thing you saw the suit tech there is pull off that umbilical cover off their right leg. That was that white plastic piece he took off, because you're also trying to prevent any FOD from getting into the cooling loop or into the connectors there until you're actually in because the spacecraft is essentially kept completely sanitary and clean. So once you're in there, in theory, there should be nothing else that can contaminate the suit. And like we mentioned, they've got their booties off now as the last thing before they go across that piece. And then come Jeanette and Alexander.
Yep, Jeanette and Alexander. Jeanette Epps, Alexandra Grebenkin are 2 mission specialists for Crew-8, walking across the crew access arm, about to join their crewmates in Dragon. You saw some waves, thumbs up. They're chatting as they make their way across the crew access arm.
They'll do the signing of the meatball here while the other 2 are getting strapped in.
Yeah, the other 2 are already both in. So we have Matt and Mike already inside Dragon. Going into Dragon, that's called ingressing. They just ingressed into Dragon. This crew is moving.
It's better to be ahead than behind, that's
Exactly.
for sure.
So that's Alexander signing right there. And now Jeanette.
And you can see, like you alluded to earlier, like why they don't all four try to get in at the same time. In microgravity, it's easy to do because you've got the vertical and three-dimensional space you can use when you're not constrained by 1G, but here on the ground trying to have four people and the suit techs and the hatch techs, all those people all in the same spot, it gets pretty crowded.
Yeah, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 people either in the capsule, at least 8 people, either in the capsule or in the White Room right now. So as you said, removing their boot coverings, essentially. Walking on that sticky tape to grab anything off of the soles of their shoes before they ingress as well.
Yep, and you can see the techs are making sure their helmet is protected on the way in, just so you don't accidentally bump either the hatch seal or damage the helmet.
Mm-hmm. How big of a space are we talking about? Can you give us an idea for how wide it is in their Dragon?
Inside the Dragon?
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, you can see that the 4 seats across, and then below the seats it gets a little wider. So it's wide enough that you can lay head to foot pretty comfortably. You can probably fit 2 people down there. And then it narrows as it goes up. So above the displays that Mike's using right now, you could probably fit 1 person laying horizontally. So it's actually pretty comfortable.
Actually, Dragon is configured for 7 passengers if needed, right?
Right. The original outer mold line design was built so where you see the cargo bags underneath Mike and Matt's feet, that at one point early in the design was considered for extra seats. That wasn't. That's not what it's certified for now, but that was originally part of the original concept. You can see number 22. Those products I was talking about earlier that each crew runs a little differently. Some like have what we call like lineup cards. Some use the iPad. Some maybe have I'm gonna wave for Matt
waving,
there.
yeah. Finding the camera, he sees us. Thumbs up. I think that's for you, Raja. From a turtle to another turtle. So as we can see, Matt and Mike have their harness on. It's a 5-point harness.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a harness, and then also where their boots are at, there's a connection in the sole of their boot that locks their feet into the footrests, and then yeah, you're seeing that they're helping. You can see a good view of Alexander's thing. It's like a rotary knob that those 5 straps go into.
And it looks like on Mike's right leg, that's where the umbilical will be connected to, right?
Right, they're all connected right now. You can see it on Jeanette's, yeah, on all their right legs. You can see it's connected. So at some point, I would assume they'll start doing comm checks. They can probably hear each other at this point, would be my guess, depending on whether the ground's configured it yet.
Yeah, comm checks are
They'll usually probably wait for the text to get out of there, just otherwise you hear a bunch of background noise.
Gotcha. Yeah, so explain what the umbilical system does. Like, what do they get through these umbilicals that they're now attached to?
Yeah, so the umbilical gives them air, both for cooling and the breathing air, and then also it's the comm link. So that's the 2 big things. That's so environmental control and then communication. And then on the armrests are the actual controls for talking, for volume, what's called a Vox, which is a setting of how loud you have to talk for the other people to hear you, because you don't want to hear people breathing. So it's a sensitivity setting. So that's what on their hand rests, they have buttons that control that. You can see, kind of like I mentioned, this is now where they're putting on what we call the crew configured items. So it looks like maybe that's a mirror, I think, like a wrist mirror. So pretty common to see. We'll see that on like the EVA suits, and that's because once you're at pressure, it's hard to read things on your own suit.
I see. And the team actually, Raja, just got another weather brief. And right now, launch weather here at Kennedy is 85% go.
Nice. Great news.
And we have that up there. There's still some concerns. Again, flight through precipitation, anvil cloud rule. Explain what those rules are, Raja, and why we do have to keep a close eye on launch weather.
Sure, yeah. So the flight through precipitation is just kind of the physics of a vehicle going really fast. If you imagine driving in your car at 25 miles per hour.
Dragon SpaceX, loud and clear from Hawthorne. How you doing?
We're almost strapped in. We'll get you a real com check here in a minute.
Copy.
So you heard that call out. They're getting ready for com checks. That was just
They're just saying they're in their seats. Yep.
So real quickly, obviously.
So yeah, so the flight through precep is just the speed, at that speed with the rain hitting the structure of the rocket, the concern that it causes structural damage. And then the anvil clouds is...
SpaceX, PLT for com check.
Pilot, loud and clear. How me?
Charlie 2, good to be with you guys tonight.
The view there is MCCX and Hawthorne.
Use well, Mike.
And the anvil cloud rule is essentially thunder clouds, is when we talk about anvil clouds. And so the concern there is lightning, also potentially hail that can be in the uplift part of the anvil. That's as the air circulates, the nasty stuff usually gets pushed up higher. So avoiding flying through that is usually something we try to do.
But again, improving trends, 85% go here at the launch site, and also improving trends along the ascent corridor. So teams are growing even more optimistic that today we will see Crew-8 launch to the International Space Station.
I'm looking forward to it. So it looks like they're configuring the straps on those, what they call the satchels, those crew satchels that have a mix of basically like some of the product, like lineup cards. They have some emergency egress cards and some other things like that. Some quick, basically, things if you need to get to checklist quickly, you've got it in there. You can see next to Mike's right arm, another tradition of putting the crews that have been in that particular Dragon capsule in Endeavour, their patches along the bulkhead to his right.
Oh, look at this view. It's a really tight space, but I really appreciate the camera teams there giving us these great views of our crew. So as was reported out, they're in their seats, strapped in. We expect comm checks soon, followed by seat rotation, and then suit leak checks. They're ready. Thumbs up for all those things coming up from all 4 crew members. So we are counting down with 85% go for launch here at Kennedy Space Center.
Dragon SpaceX for an update. Team still working towards side hatch closure and being extra cautious about some hairs they found on the seals. Not a concern, and they're just being cautious.
Dragon copy. Thank you.
All right, so the team just reported that out to the crew. You heard Matt answering back that he copies, that he knows they are dealing with a couple of hairs in the seal.
And like we mentioned earlier, saw him using that lint-free cloth and taking pictures and comparing it to old pictures. So kind of exactly like we suspected. Saw a hair, cleaned it off, and then probably photo documenting where the hair was at and making sure that the act of wiping the hair off with that cloth didn't do any damage or leave any residual oils or anything like that behind. So that's, you know, the other reason they're wearing gloves is just the oils of your skin touching those seals can degrade them.
Again, so meticulous. They have to be so careful.
So it looks like they're closing the hatch now, so they must be happy with what they've gotten for pictures and documentation. And like you said, the next big thing here is still about 9-ish minutes away from the planned time to start the leak checks.
Let's try to squeeze in another social media question. We have a lot coming in for you, Raja. This one is from Leslie on Twitch, asking, how come launch is so late in the day? Why not earlier?
Well, Leslie, it's just driven by the orbital dynamics. Sometimes they are in the day, sometimes in the evening. So it's purely driven by what's called the phasing.
And Dragon, there's hatch closure. Stand by for transition to pad hatch closed. And then note for you, ensure all items are secure from now through launch.
Confirmation of side hatch close.
Dragon.
the sound from hitting the structure and reverberating back onto the rocket.
FTS
Coming up
alarm,
on 1
Falcon
minute
9
until
start up
launch.
and sound control. Dragon is in countdown.
The flight termination system is armed, and we are in
Dragon,
countdown.
SpaceX, go for
45
launch.
seconds.
Dragon copies. Go for launch.
Reports go. Crew reports go. Now,
T-minus 30 seconds.
about 30 seconds away from liftoff.
Seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition, engines full power, and liftoff of NASA Crew-8. Go Falcon, go SpaceX, and go NASA.
One Alpha.
Endeavour ascends, a beacon of human ambition. 1.7 million pounds of thrust now propelling Falcon 9 and Crew-8. Vehicle is pitching down range.
Nominal power and telemetry.
And we are getting good call-outs on propulsion. Falcon 9 engines now throttling down to help pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Stage 1 throttle up.
1 Bravo.
So with that call out,
Copy 1 Bravo.
we know that Falcon 9 is throttling back up, and that 1 call out for 1 Bravo means that we are in the second and final abort mode for the first stage, continuing to get good performance from Falcon 9. Now at this point, the crew are already pulling over 2 Gs. And with that call out, we know that that engine chill for MVAC, which is our second stage engine, has now also begun. That also means we have a couple of events that are going to happen in rapid succession. First is that chill on the MVAC engine, and then we'll have main engine cutoff, or MECO, where the 9 engines on the first stage of Falcon 9 will cut off ahead of first and second stage separation. Then the Merlin vacuum engine on board the second stage will ignite and carry the Crew-8 astronauts to orbit, while the first stage begins its journey back to Earth. At this point in the flight, the 9 Merlin engines are starting to throttle down, and we're standing. There's that call out for throttle down, and we're standing by for MECO.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
2 Alpha.
Copy 2 Alpha.
So those incredible views on your screen, and of course the cheering behind me, means that we have had successful main engine cutoff, stage separation, and ignition of our MVAC engine on board stage 2. We are also in 2 Alpha for the aborts if needed. Of course, that second stage is being illuminated on the right-hand side of your screen by our single Merlin vacuum engine on board stage 2. Now, the next milestone we're tracking is the stage 1 boost back burn on the left-hand side of your screen. And we are expecting completion of that burn in just about 10 seconds.
And so Crew-8 is now traveling at over 4,000 miles per hour. We're continuing to get good call outs, everything going really smoothly today. That second stage will continue firing until we reach about 8 minutes into the flight.
Dragon SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Dragon.
Good performance on the lone Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. The crew's G-load dips right when we hit the separation event, and it's going to continue to build up now. Again, we just heard another call out for nominal trajectory. That was the guidance, navigation, and control officer stating nominal trajectory, or everything is looking good. Dragon is pointed in the right direction, continuing its flight uphill. This second stage will continue to fire until a little over 8 minutes into the flight, accelerating Dragon to more than 17,000 miles per hour and placing the crew in orbit. Right now, the crew is traveling at 4,500 miles per hour and is over 93 miles in altitude. That single Merlin vacuum engine can produce over 220,000 pounds of thrust in the vacuum of space, and you really see it doing the heavy lifting right now.
So while Crew-8 continues on its way to the International Space Station, the first stage booster is on its way back to landing zone 1.
SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Confirmation there that the trajectory for both vehicles is looking good. Now, the first stage has a couple of events itself in order to land. At T plus 6 minutes and 16 seconds, stage 1 will begin its entry burn, which will be the first of 2 burns prior to landing. During this burn, Falcon 9 will ignite only the center engine for about 10 seconds in order to slow the vehicle down before it reaches the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere. That will be followed by the landing burn at T plus 7 minutes and 21 seconds. This time we'll light 3 engines, and the burn will last for about 20 seconds, ending just about a minute before we expect Dragon to be inserted into orbit.
And so we did also hear a couple of different ground station call-outs, like Bermuda. That is one of the ground stations that we're receiving telemetry from, and everything continues to look really good with the trajectory. The crew now traveling over 6,000 miles per hour. Again, this second stage will continue to light for a couple more minutes before second engine cutoff. At that point, the vehicle will coast for a few minutes before separation. And it looks like we're starting to get some views of the Florida coast there on the first stage as it continues to make its way back to Earth.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Continuing to get good call-outs, everything going smoothly. Now almost 7 minutes into the flight of Crew-8.
So the next milestone we're standing by for is stage 1 landing burn start. Again, as stage 1 approaches the Space Coast to touch back down at landing zone 1.
Stage 2 FTS is safed.
And it is great to see that first stage back on Earth. Coming up, next on the second stage is second engine cutoff. You can hear some excitement here at Hawthorne at SpaceX headquarters as that first stage successfully landed back on Earth. So second engine cutoff will take place here in just a couple of minutes. Once the lone Merlin engine cuts off and stops firing, the second stage will continue to coast for about 3 minutes until Dragon is commanded to separate. At this point, Dragon will separate from the second stage and will fly free with Crew-8 still on board and in orbit.
Shannon.
Copy, Shannon.
And that call out for Shannon, indicative of Shannon, Ireland, the very last abort zone in the second stage. The Merlin engine is about to shut down. You just saw it there on your screen.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
Dragon
Hearing
copy.
good call-outs following second stage cutoff. The crew is
Launch
in a
escape
nominal
system
or
disarmed.
as expected orbit. That is great news. That launch escape system, and we are getting our first view of Crew-8 inside Endeavour, 3 of them in space for the very first time. So again, we'll continue to coast for these few minutes after that second stage just shut down. This helps to allow rates and motion to settle out. There are actually small reaction thrusters on the upper part of the second stage that can be used to counteract any residual motion, basically making sure that we're in a stable coast before Dragon separates from Falcon. We expect that separation here to occur at about the 12-minute mark into the flight. So again, we did hear that the crew has been successfully inserted into a good orbit. This is the crew in microgravity, 3 of them for the very first time, all good call-outs.
So right now, the second stage is performing a series of checkouts as we prepare to separate Dragon from stage 2.
And so we will see that separation coming up in just a couple of minutes, after which a number of activation checkouts occur automatically. First, we'll be checking out 12 of the Draco maneuvering thrusters all around the service section of the Dragon spacecraft. And then we'll also begin to get ready for nose cone opening. Nose cone stays closed for the flight uphill to help protect all of those guidance, navigation, and control sensors. It also covers 4 of the Draco thrusters that will be used for the majority of the different phase burns, requiring Dragon to catch up to the International Space Station. So we are standing by for Dragon separation to occur here in just about 30 seconds from now.
Of course, the view you have right now on your screen, actually now that our view has transitioned, you're getting a great view of Dragon's heat shield. This camera is on top of stage 2 and looking up into Dragon's trunk.
So if you're just joining us this evening, we had a successful launch of Crew-8. They're on their way to the International Space Station. The first stage has already returned to Earth and landed successfully, and the second stage has shut down, and we're awaiting separation, and you see it on your screen right there. Dragon and Endeavour now flying free.
Dragon, SpaceX, this is your launch chief engineer.
Go ahead.
Welcome to orbit. It truly is our greatest honor for you to trust us to launch you into space. It's been a pleasure working with you, and we trust that all the science and work you're about to do will continue to move humanity further towards the stars. We hope you enjoyed the ride, and thank you for flying on Falcon 9. Please send our regards to Crew 7, and make sure to remind them you just wanted to be fashionably late. I'll hand it off to the launch director for a few words.
Dragon LD, hope the ride was as awesome as a Cybertruck. Have a safe journey to the space station, and we look forward to seeing you when you get home. Thank you for flying SpaceX.
SpaceX, oh my goodness, what an incredible ride to orbit. I'm both glad and not glad that you don't have a copy of our ICS. The cheers the whole way up were incredible. A big thank you to SpaceX for incredible instructors. Tyler, I'm talking to you and your team right now. Incredible instructors, engineers, and operators. They're the reason we are now safely in orbit. A thank you to NASA, Roscosmos, CSA, ESA, JAXA, who work together to make the International Space Station work for us all. And of course, big thank you to my family, friends, and mentors who are the reason we're here today. Over to you, Mike.
Yeah, hey, it's just to let you know, it's kind of like a roller coaster ride with a bunch of really excited teenagers. want to mention the NASA community is just a really warm but steely-eyed family that does amazing things, and it kind of hugs you, but it pushes you into the unknown while watching your back. It's really been an incredible place for me to grow over these past 30-plus years, and now I'm really honored to fly this new generation spaceship with this new generation crew. Thanks to my own family for tolerating my otherworldly habits. Thanks to NASA for being the backbone of exploration that we are. And just thanks so much to our friends and colleagues at SpaceX for the awesome ride. It's great to be back in space again.
And I would like to second Mike and Matt's words. I'm super excited to be here. And, you know, I need to hear, and the words that come to my mind is that I'm so grateful and I'm thankful for everyone who got us to this point. There's no way we would have been able to do this without all the people, from all the instructors, from all the people supporting on the ground, to the folks in the kitchen who kept us fed, and Lou's out at SpaceX. You know, I'm so grateful for everyone, and I just want to give a big thanks to my family and friends who came from all over the world to see this. Thank you for supporting me through all the days of waiting to get to this point. Thank you for everything, and I want to give a quick shout out to my sisters who couldn't make it, Brenda and Patty, and then I'd also want to give a nod to Syracuse, who supported me through everything, and I am in a New York state of mind right now. It is amazing. Thank you for everything.
Warm greetings to everyone from the orbit. I would like to express huge gratitude to Roscosmos, NASA, ESA, JAXA teams, and all who took part in preparation and implementation. A separate shout out to my family and friends. Thank you for your support. My sons, Serежа, Vlad, Sasha, be good. Кузбасс от Москвы. See you soon. Всех тепло приветствую с орбиты. Выражаю огромную благодарность коллективу Роскосмоса, НАСА и САДЗАКСа и всем без исключения причастным к подготовке и реализации нашего полета. Отдельный привет передаю своей семье и близким. Спасибо вам за поддержку. Сыновьям Сережа, Влад, Саша, будьте молодцами. Кузбасс, Москвы, до встречи.
Dragon, we copied all, and we see the vehicle chasing down the International Space Station on orbit. Nose cone opening is in progress. We saw nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts. With that, your go to raise visors. And I've got one final note. We have a tradition on board this spacecraft for its travelers to bring a small token, a zero-G indicator, if you will, to clearly demonstrate the free-floating nature of objects traveling in orbit around the Earth. And I wonder if you've brought anything fitting that description.
Well, you should ask. Oh, man. So per tradition, we, of course, have a zero-G indicator. It's already been deployed. The significance of our zero-G indicator is not actually what it is, but who chose it. Many parents around the world have jobs that take them away from their children and families for long periods of time to serve their communities, their country, and the world. Military families are a prime example, but many jobs, including our own, share this trait. The choice of the zero-G indicator was given to my daughters to represent the sacrifice that children everywhere make while their parents are serving away from home. We chose a stuffed family dog, and she is free-floating here today.
Matt, we copied all. Good words. I think we don't have video inside the capsule. We'll have to come back with you in a minute for a video of that stuffed dog.
No worries, thanks.
So right now on your screen, you do have that initial video of nose cone deployment. And again, the nose cone is opening to expose those 2 sets of hooks that Dragon will use to autonomously dock with the International Space Station. Of course, loved hearing that crew's description of their zero-G indicator, and we're standing by for those views. Zero-G indicators really do become an important symbol of microgravity flight and the communities behind each mission. So for those of you following along, you'll know that our first zero-G passenger was Little Earth on demonstration mission 1. Here's Little Earth on board Dragon on that DM-1 flight, and later on board the ISS. Today, just 5 years later, we've reached 50 people flown to space. From 0G to 50 in just 5 years is pretty incredible. And of course, here in Hawthorne, I actually have the real Little Earth that went to space safely back on Earth with us here in Hawthorne. Little Earth is a celebration of zero-gravity indicators, an essential component of space missions that help mark the transition into zero-G. From Yuri Gagarin's famous pencil to modern indicators like Little Earth and demonstration missions to Tremor the sequin dinosaur, zero-gravity indicators have become a way for all of us to connect with and celebrate human spaceflight. Human spaceflight has come so far in the last 5 years. SpaceX has launched 9 human spaceflight missions on behalf of NASA and 4 commercial astronaut missions. That's a total of 50 crew members to space since 2020, 34 on behalf of NASA and their partners, and 16 commercial astronauts, including the first all-civilian mission to space and the first all-private passenger mission to the International Space Station.
In addition to flying people, SpaceX also enables researchers the opportunity to fly critical science to orbit. SpaceX and Dragon carried over 1,000 research experiments to and from low Earth orbit in the International Space Station and transported over 300,000 pounds to and from the station since 2012. Researchers from around the world use the space station to address complex human health problems on Earth, studying disease formation, testing drugs and diagnostic tools, and examining the inner workings of the human body. At any one time, the station hosts hundreds of investigations spanning every major scientific discipline from physics to microbiology.
Every mission yields critical research and learnings that help make life both on Earth and in space better. From DNA sequencing to 3D printing, studies on the space station test a variety of technologies, systems, and materials that will benefit life on Earth and be needed for future long-duration exploration missions.
ECS and forward bulkhead Draco checkouts, and we see an upcoming burn in 23 minutes, 2-3.
Getting great views of Crew-8 on board their capsule there and standing by hoping we might get a shot. There is their zero-G indicator. Loved hearing the crew's description of who chose this animal and why, and everything that it means to them, to their mission, and obviously the community standing behind each of these 4 astronauts.
And in addition to that, we heard some great words from the crew expressing their thanks and excitement to be on orbit. Really great to see them successfully on their way to the International Space Station. We had a successful nose cone deploy as well as those Draco checkouts, everything continuing to go really smooth. So for now, we're going to end our coverage from here in Hawthorne until we pick back up with our docking coverage in about 26 hours.
So for now, we're going to hand it back over to Megan and Raja at Kennedy Space Center to wrap up today's launch coverage.
If you're just joining us, welcome to Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where we just watched Crew-8 lift off from Launch Pad 39A. 3 NASA astronauts and 1 cosmonaut now en route to the International Space Station. I'm Megan Cruz. This is NASA astronaut Rajachari, and we got to see an incredible launch. What a clear night.
That was amazing.
Dragon SpaceX. Cabin environment looks good for suit doffing, and we'll take the camera external here in just a sec. Your go for 4.012 suit doffing.
And that's the question we were just talking about before we got back online was when are they going to actually start doffing their suits?
Copy to go, 4.012 suit doffing.
And so you heard the calls there. So first they wait for the nose cone to get open. They wait for the Dracos to be safed. which was the launch escape system. And then once they've verified the cabin atmosphere is good, that's when they can take off their suits. And as you heard them say, they're going to take the cameras external, is basically they're taking off their spacesuit. And it's pretty sweaty after you've been laying on the back for a while. Yeah, but you could hear in all their voices the excitement. And like you said, what an amazing night down here at the Cape. It was super clear. You could see.
Dragon cameras are exterior.
You could actually see the staging, and it was
Copy external.
Amazing view, and I got to see the first stage come back, so it was a super clear night, and we got to see the second stage turn into just a very faint star all the way at Seco.
Yeah, and it's great to see some friends launch of yours. You're really close with Matt and Mike, I understand, and really it's nice to see a launch because we really waited till T-minus 10 minutes to know whether or not we were going to go.
Yep, yeah, and it's it's always exciting when it comes to space flight, even more exciting when it comes to human space flight, and just great to see the team come up with a technical solution, look at all the data. As you heard them keeping the crew informed, like we talked many times tonight, the core is the person and the Capcom that they are talking to, but there is literally hundreds of people talking on loops and making engineering decisions and trying to go back and look at analysis data. And so a great testament to the team tonight to pull all that data together, as they always do.
Yeah, and to make sure that they're safe at launch and also re-entry. So great to see it launch again, and once they get to the space station, they're going to have a hand in some incredible science and investigations, and here's Jasmine Hopkins with more on that.
Thank you so much, Megan. That's right. We saw another beautiful, spectacular launch from here on the Space Coast, and joining us now is Dr. Ji from Emory University to talk about Project Eagle. So, Dr. Ji, what is Project Eagle?
Our goal is to investigate the impact of space microgravity on human heart microtissues. These tissues are generated from stem cells, and they are a potential source of cells for cardiac regeneration. One challenge is that these heart stem cells are largely immature, meaning that they're not as fully developed as the heart cells in our body. So we are trying to find ways to push these cells to develop further, because transplanting immature cells could actually increase the risk of complications. The good news is that we found this heart muscle cells become more mature under ground-based simulated microgravity. And we would like to confirm that observation under real space microgravity.
Right, so we're kind of taking what we've learned here on Earth and seeing if we can apply it in space. So with that in mind, we've been studying heart health in space for quite a long time now. So is Project Eagle going to tie into any of the other research we've already done?
Great question. Yes. Actually, our experiment is built up on several interesting studies on the space station, including our own. For example, on the space station, heart stem cells or precursor cells grow faster than under standard gravity. So in our new experiment, we would like to learn if this beating heart muscle cells can develop further and become more mature under space microgravity.
Right, so we're kind of taking that that research to the next step there. And of course, that's really important because we're looking at going even deeper into space. But actually, is, things like Project Eagle, could that actually help us on Earth? What we're learning in space for our heart, could that benefit our heart health on Earth as well?
That's good. Another good question. Yeah, so we hope to learn, identify the molecules or conditions that can be helpful to promote the maturation of heart cells, because that could help us develop new strategies to push the cells become more mature on Earth. More mature heart cells are more reliable for repairing damaged heart, and those more mature heart cells are also useful for develop new medications to treat patients with heart disease.
Right. Yeah. So it's great to see, we're taking it in space, also benefiting our life here on Earth. Thank you so much, Dr. Ji. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, Megan and Raja, back to you.
All right, we're about to wrap up our coverage here, but I want to take one last social media question because this one is super cute. This one is from a 4-year-old, Robbie, and he wants to know, what will the crew do to pass the time on the way to the space station?
Well, Robbie, hopefully your parents are typing for you and you don't have your own social media account as a 4-year-old. But it's actually probably the best time, both at the beginning of the mission and at the end of the mission, because on the ISS, your timeline down to 5-minute increments. So you're going. So this time in the Dragon on the way up and the way down is kind of the time to honestly look out the window, enjoy the fact that you're in space, for all of us, we've trained and spent most of our life getting ready for this moment, so actually getting to savor that and enjoy it. And you heard Mike Barratt talk about being able to look. He said it was like being in a roller coaster with a bunch of teenagers. So, it sounds like there's a lot of joy in that capsule right now. On the serious side, they are starting to probably be working with the cameras, taking some Earth observation photos, things like that. But it's mostly just starting to get the cargo ready so that when they do dock, they can be ready to go. They'll have to now start worrying about the rendezvous timeline, so they'll be monitoring the burn. So each time there's a phasing burn to get them closer to the space station, they'll be monitoring that and preparing for it. And then when it gets time to do the actual rendezvous, they'll get back in their suits and then start monitoring the systems and being ready to jump in for anything that's off nominal. So they do keep relatively busy.
I was going to say, sounds like they're doing a lot over the next...
There's plenty to be done, but it is a nice chance just to decompress a bit and enjoy the fact that you're in space. And there's some adaptation so that the ISS is a much bigger volume. So it's actually kind of helpful to use the Dragon where you're confined. You're pretty clumsy at first, and so you can't go very far without running into something and stopping. So you can use the Dragon as sort of like with training wheels, get used to microgravity before you get on the space station and go.
So they can actually
around.
Get out of their suits in these next 28
hours. Right. So when you heard them say they could do the suit doffing procedure, they're absolutely unstrapping, taking the suits off, putting on some more comfortable clothes, and probably depending on their timeline, they may immediately go to bed. They may have some time to eat and then get up later. So it all depends on the docking timeline.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that insight. And Robbie, thank you so much for that question. That's going to do it for us here on NASA TV. But you can follow along with Crew-8's entire ride to the station by listening in to real-time mission audio. And you can check that out by scanning the QR code on your screen. Or if, again, you're watching us on your phone, just screen grab the code, and then you can click on it later. Now, Matthew, Michael, Jeanette, and Alexander are on course to arrive at the International Space Station around 3 a.m. Eastern Time on March 5th, so Tuesday. On-camera coverage of docking and arrival will resume about 2 hours before on NASA TV. And that's really always fun to watch,
Oh,
Roger.
yeah, absolutely. Just the faces of the crew. I mean, I think we showed some clips from earlier before, but it's both exciting because they're coming onto the space station. It's so bizarre to have trained so much at Johnson Space Center in the mock-ups and then see the real thing, and it's upside down or sideways, and just your mind trying to take that all in. And I guarantee the smiles are going to be huge. As you saw, Laurel's excited to see him. Everyone's excited to see everyone. It's a really weird family reunion when it happens in space, but it's probably one of the most fun ones to have.
Well, and of course, before we sign off from Kennedy, I want to thank Rajachari for joining us, co-hosting his second launch with us. I hope you had a good time.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I think I outwore the jinx this time, so I
Thank
finally
you.
got.
I appreciate that. What we're going to do is sign you up for Crew-9. That's right. You heard it here, folks. Crew-9, Rajachari co-host. And a huge thanks to all of our guests for joining us today, but most importantly, thank you all for watching. And you can keep up with any updates on this mission using the online resources we're going to put on your screen right now. For everyone here at NASA and SpaceX, have a great morning or evening. It's still 11:25, and we'll leave you now with a look back at highlights from suit up to liftoff.